Hey yo, have you ever thought how actually React works with events in browser? Let's dive into this small topic inside this video. But before we actually dive into this topic, first of all, subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and please put thumbs up under this video. And I have actually question that corresponding to the topic that we will discuss, and I want to ask it in the format of the quiz, and you can find the link to my Telegram channel under this video, and there I will post the question and you can answer to this question, and after that we'll come back to this video where I will actually answer to this question. So question approximately the following. Imagine that situation that we have the simple React application with this one input, and we have event handler on change that have this lovely console log that only print and change, and that's it. And we add this event handler to this input. Two questions. First question: this event handler on change, where it will be bind, on what node? On input, exactly on the same that we have here input, or somewhere else? And second question: if we change our event handler, for example, I don't know, we depends on the condition. For example, we change our on change handler to something else, to some another use call, to some another callback. You know that in browser we have remove event listener, right, and add event listener. And the question: if we add this new onChange callback, will browser actually remove this event listener from some node? We don't know yet. And after that, add event listener with a new callback. So yeah, two questions. Put this video on pause, go to this Telegram channel and find this quiz. Link will be in description. And after that, you can answer the question. We'll be glad that you correctly answered it or no. In any cases, you can come back to this video after that. So yeah, pause. And unpause. Okay, you answered the question, and let's dive into these details, how actually event handler will happening in the React, and where first let's start with answering on the first question: where our handler will be bind, on what node? And for the answering on this question, I want to remind you, or maybe to tell you about some details about some classic story about event handling in the browser in the DOM. There is a good article in MGN that dedicated to topic that I want to discuss. For the first question, it's event bubbling and event capturing. So the concepts of event bubbling, it's when you click on some if some event happening with some node inside tree in browser in your page, on your page. If you, for example, click on this button, what actually in browser happening, that event actually bubbled. So it goes from this node where you clicked and go upper until you reached body. And in example in MGN, you see that actually it happening, that you click on body, it's only triggering on body. If you click on button, it's triggering on button, after that div that contain this button, and after that on body. Like the following. And there is another case when events actually after bubbling from body go back to the opposite direction. It's event capturing, and there is example here. I totally recommend to read this full article with a whole page of explanations, but in glance, this this works as I said, that we have event bubbling and event capturing. For example, if you click on the button, we will have event bubbling before, as we discussed before, but after that we will have the opposite. We can actually subscribe to the bubbling phase and capturing phase. So we can subscribe to the body in the bubbling example, for example, and there you can catch the clicks on the button inside. And you can also click on the button, subscribe to the click on the button or on body, but during the capture phase, with the opposite. As an example, you can actually, for add event listener, accept that argument with different options, and one of these options is capture, and where you can handle event that will move back. Okay, we dealt with this concept. And if we will come back to our React application, I can tell you that actually the events, all events that handled by React, actually you can find all of them, not exactly in this input. In input also we have event, but actually change and input event that more important in our example, all of them you can find with this inspector or on the root element. We even have here all of range of the events even not added to our application. And why it's so important and why React do so? One of the reasons that I can tell you for 100% of sure, that it's because of the performance optimization. Because if you have a lot of nodes inside your application, you need to do, first of all, event listener management, and for every node that you added to the React, the imagine situation that this input will disappear from the page. After that, you will need to remove event listener and not to make a browser cleaner after the removing of the node. You don't need already this event handler, so you can remove it. And it's painful for the single page application with every state changes and removing of some nodes and adding again to make this management of all of these events. And it's simpler because, if you know that there is a bubble effect, you can subscribe to the root of the application and wait for every event that happens inside. No matter from what exactly node, we can find what exactly a node triggered this event with the target inside the event object. And another thing, more important, it's performance. If, as I said, if we have a lot of rows in the table, for example, it's a canonical example. It's good to have less number of listeners. Then it's better to have one listener. And okay, but another part of the question that I asked, if our callback changed, actually. React will actually resubscribe to this event or not. Let's inspect this situation, and let's go first of all to this event handler that's added to the root container for every application. And if we add here breakpoint, and more important to subscribe to more interesting for us event, for example input, we will find some interesting things. First of all, let's dive into how event handler, let's a little bit debug this event handling. And I would like to notice that now we catched first event, but actually it's not event that we interested in. I will describe it a little bit later. And now we have DOM event name. Oh my god. Yep, input. And let's do a little bit of debugging. And let's move to some lines that is not interesting for us. Not dive into details too much. Dispatch events looks a little bit more interesting. Yes, sounds interesting. Let's actually even move it to separate window and make it full screen. It will be better. So yeah, we stopped on this line, and it's blocked on not so interesting for us. Yes, there is a interesting function dispatch event for plugin event system. Looks interesting. And one interesting thing that you will find during the debugging, that here we have some loop, main loop, which actually while true, so kinda endless if we don't have any breaks inside, and hopefully we have one. But another interesting that it's not so popular in the code, that you definitely in rare cases we will find the code in your company, in the job. It's a label, and there is a usage of this label here. It works the following way, that we move from inside this line of the code, inside this block of execution, again to this label. So kind of interesting, but okay. I will tell a little bit shorter about what's happening here in the glance. Actually, your React application can be inside another React application, and this code, if we are talking briefly about it, is trying to find the container root, which actually in which container belongs. So there is a possibility, there is a couple of them upper, and we should find with the traversing the root container that actually we need. And after that, we can skip all of this. And actually, the interesting things happening here. Batched updates, that batching updates our event. It's kind of hypothetically will update something inside our application, trigger it and put it to the queue, doing asynchronously. And inside, we can actually dispatch event for plugins methods. We can take a look inside it. And actually here, we see this extract event, where we actually got our event, right? It's interesting. There is interesting variable dispatch queue that will be fulfilled with all our listeners, that actual for this event name, I will repeat input. And actually, because I've already did it, I will proceed us with the interesting branch of this inspection. Dispatch queue is still empty, and DOM event input still DOM event name still input. Okay, we have target node is our input, and should use change event. Nope. Text input, yes. Input event separated, yes. Get target inst function, it's some function that helps us to find inst. What is it, inst? Interesting, right? And more interesting that we finally find some interesting method like create and accumulate change event with a native event and this strange inst object. Let's dive into the create and accumulate change event. Oh, what we found? We found a synthetic event. You might already know that in React, all events inside your handlers, it's not actual native event, it's synthetic event that create for us React. Here we are witnesses of the both of this synthetic event for our change event, but it's not so interesting for us for now. We found that we have this method accumulate two-phase listeners. We already know that we have two phases of listeners inside of the React, inside of the browser event mechanism. We found that we're trying to find on change capture listener. it's definitely not our case, because our case it's just on change. And yes, but we find interesting like bubble listener, and we proceed to it, looks like. And yes, React name on change on our instance, that it's that we got somehow. And actually, wow, we found our on change handler that we actually have in our application, and it happening inside this get fiber current props from node. What is it? We unfortunately missed this part, but I hope that restart frame will helps with restarting. Yes, it helped a lot. And let's dive actually into this method. And wow, what we see, we have our node, our input with all of it looks like element it looks like object, DOM object that corresponding to our input. And what we see inside of our node, we have some internal props key inside which looks like React gathering our onChange callback. And this investigation actually helps us to understand that we, during the event capturing, not good word for this one because it will be the same as the event capturing. During handling of the event, React actually under hood doesn't go to some queue and doesn't do any remove event listener and add event listener inside, but in reality it can take a look during the event handling, and when event happening, take a look at some internal key of node where we actually store our props. And actually we can even find how changing of this handler. After that we will not see any remove event listener or add event listener, but instead we will see something else. Does React actually after the changing of the event handler on input on some node, not exactly input, do change of the event handler and removing it before adding it again? In reality, as you can guess, nope. You can take a look on another example that I'm prepared. It's React input, React application with this one input, but I've did modification here. I've added this use state, and inside this state is enabled control do we assign to this on change callback, or if we don't, we put undefined inside this event handler. And we have use effect in which we have this timeout. After 5 seconds we setting our is enabled to false, which will trigger change of re-render of this app, and inside we kind of remove but change our on change handler from this callback on change to the undefined. And if we open our application, we already noticed from our inspection of event handling that we got our props from this method getFiberCurrent props from node, which with the using of special internal props key helps us to gather props from the node. So as you may already notice that below under this method we have actually another method, update fiber props, that in reality will trigger changes and put new props, and one of these props will be our onChange handler. And after that, when event happening and handled by our root container, finally it will take a look in this container for props and got the latest onChange callback. So we can even test it and add log of these props, maybe even with not sure that it will work, but let's try. And yeah, as you can see that we have this on change handler, and after 5 seconds we got from our method update fiber props, we got undefined for on change. And that's it. After that, if event will happen, it will be triggered by our input, but React will take a look inside it and will find that actually input doesn't have on change handler. And we can even click and ensure that it's our callback. That's true. That's how event handling happening in React. Please put thumbs up under this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe it to this channel, and also subscribe to my Telegram channel. See you next time. Bye.